Ricochet giving notice to WWE. We talked about Ricochet last week as far as the contracts expiring, where we see him ending up, and we both said probably him staying in WWE. And then Saturday evening comes, and it's reported that Ricochet has already given notice to WWE at the end of his current contract. He intends to leave, and then we see him on Raw kind of confirming that departure by being absolutely destroyed by Braun Breaker backstage. So we'll kind of analyze this here and do a deeper dive on it, but your overall reaction to Ricochet saying, hey, listen, I don't want to re-sign, and him being on his way out of the company.
I'm stunned, honestly. I mean, I think, I guess maybe he sees himself at a higher level.
Mm-hmm.
I think with WWE specifically right now, he's strictly mid-card. And, I mean, I think under Triple H, he's been booked better. I mean, the people that say that they wasted him, I mean, he had a pretty good WWE career so far. I wouldn't say he was wasted. I just guess maybe he had higher expectations for him. But, I mean, for what he does and what his limitations are, I think he's been booked pretty well. I mean, he's very good in the ring. He can do all the moves, but his mic skills are very limited still. And that's in WWE specifically. If you want to be a top guy, you kind of have to talk.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I feel like that was always his limitation, and it has never really gotten to another level, and that's not everyone's a great talker, and I guess he, like I said, maybe he's betting on himself. I mean, I mean, he could go to AEW. I think if he went like TNA, maybe be treated a little bit better, but I mean, AEW, I just feel like they have so many guys like him who probably can talk better than he can, so I don't really see what, like, the difference is. I think, like I said, maybe he's going to go somewhere else. I don't know how hot independent wrestling is right now, but, I mean, clearly taking a bet on himself, and maybe he can kind of revitalize himself, but I think the talking is what's really keeping him back, and I don't think going to Indy is really going to change that. So, very surprised when I saw that he gave his notice, but, I mean, good for him if he's not satisfied with what he's doing and wants to do something else.
Listen, he's a guy that we've been high on for a really long time, dating back to Lucha Underground. Is Prince Puma, obviously. He was under the mask over there. Didn't do a lot of talking. I think he honestly left the promos to Conan and other people that he was aligned with on the show at the time. He didn't really do, excuse me, he didn't do a lot of promos. He didn't cut a lot of promos. He was really more of a action guy. He was more of a wrestler type dude. So we've been high on him since that point. And I know you had said back then, even 10 years ago, that was someone you wanted to see in WWE at some point. He came to WWE overall having a pretty decent run. North American champion, IC champion, United States champion. A lot of these runs not really lasting all that long, but still, all things considered, pretty decent run in WWE. But when he comes in 10 years ago, he didn't come in 10 years ago. He came in 6 years ago in 2018. I guess this was my thought. I have to go back and check the archives and kind of see what we thought back then, because he obviously was a massive signing for WWE. And I hate when people say, oh, WWE failed him, or oh, he had a failure of a run. I mean, I don't know what to me, a failure of a run is what the fuck happened to someone like an EC3 who came in and they did absolutely nothing with the second time after he already had success in TNA and he was fired within like 2 or 3 years. That to me is a failure. I'm talking more about people like Ricochet who came in, had success. Could he have been at a higher level? Sure. But like if Shinsuke Nakamura were to be released tomorrow or were to leave, I would say the same thing about him. I don't think he's a failure either. He's had enough success, has probably made a lot of money, and has been happy enough, content long enough to where he's definitely not a failure. Could he have been a world champion? Sure. But with Ricochet, though, in your opinion, do you think he's a guy that you were expecting to become world heavyweight champion or a world champion here in WWE? Or do you think he kind of ended up in the spot where we always envisioned him at as a mid-card, or maybe a bit higher up on the mid-card, but I feel like this is probably the best he could do given his lack of mic skills, like you said. And he's not a terrible talker, but he definitely could be better, though.
Yeah, I mean, like you kind of pointed it out. I think, I would love to know what we said back in the day. I just feel like the time I'm pretty sure we only had one world championship, so, I mean, I don't think I would ever say at that point, like, oh, he's going to be WWE champion. Like, depending on, I think mid-card was probably where we projected him, because I think we knew he could do all the moves, but the mic skills just really weren't there, and the size especially because Vince was in charge at the time.
Yeah.
Obviously doesn't have the size. I mean, even fucking Rey Mysterio, like how good he's been. Like not like he ever had these memorable like world title runs. Like held the belt a couple times, but they're all were terrible reigns. So,
yeah.
But no, I think like you said, for nothing. I mean, I think people saying he's a failure. Like, yeah, maybe could have been featured in the mid card maybe a little bit more prominently. Yeah, but I mean, he won the belt, won IC title, North American, United States. I mean, since Triple H's been taken over, he's been all over the show. I mean, I couldn't tell you the last time on Raw I didn't see Ricochet. So, I think it's silly to say he had a failure. Could he have been booked better? Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much anyone that's not like world champion or 1%er realistically in WWE. I mean, anyone technically could be booked better. I mean, it's just the way it is. But for like you said, for his flaws or his setbacks, I mean, I don't think they did it wrong by him.
No, they could have booked him better at several points, because like you said, when Vince was in charge, especially, he was completely underutilized. I mean, he is one of the best high flyers, if not the best high flyer in the world. And for a long period of time, when he first came into the company, like NXT had a great run. When he first started on the main roster, it was okay. But like by late 2019, 2020, 2021, when this guy is fucking losing to Brock in 90 seconds, he's out there working main event. And he's not even on Raw. He's working with Rector fucking Bushin. Or he's working with Riddick Moss for the 24/7 championship. That was when it was like, all right, this guy might be damaged goods. He's a loser. The company clearly sees nothing in him. It wasn't really until Triple H took over that they started to showcase him more, put him on the show more, had him win a couple tournaments, the World Cup, teaming with Braun, which worked out well. They were a decent little team. Like I said, winning a few different championships in the last couple of years. Again, no too great of a run, like he could have been a better Intercontinental champion, but he's certainly been showcased under Triple H. There was a period like late last year where he wasn't on the show for a couple months for whatever reason. I don't know if he was hurt or something like that. But beyond that, though, I mean, he's been all over the show for quite a while. As a regular, winning a fair amount of matches, never really getting beyond a certain level. He was always destined to be just a stepping stone type guy. But honestly, and I said something, I don't know if I said the opposite last week. I think I definitely said last week I don't see him leaving. There's another reason why, because you kind of mentioned it yourself. If he were to go to AEW, his spot in the company isn't really changing all that dramatically, and which is true, and I stand by that. If he were to go to AEW tomorrow, he is not that much better off than he currently is in WWE. But I think the bigger positive of him leaving, I don't know what his financial situation like is exactly, but I think he could probably make, honestly, as much money elsewhere, just through doing independence, being as hot as he probably will be when he leaves WWE, as he was in WWE, making as much money, that is. Especially when it comes to signing with AEW and probably doing New Japan and Indies and shit like that. And he's free to work anywhere he wants as soon as his contract expires, whether that's next month or August or next week, I don't know. But I think he's a guy that could really make a name for himself, and I think we probably will see him back in WWE, honestly, from in another couple of months down the road, or not couple months, I'm sorry, a couple of years down the road. The guy's 35, so I think if he were to stay with WWE for another 3 to 5 years, what more, honestly, could he really do in WWE that he hasn't already done already? Like, he's worked with all the big names for the most part. He won both mid-card belts. He's an established guy, but he's not climbing up. Like, I saw someone say a couple weeks ago, well, maybe he can win Money in the Bank. I don't know what fucking show you're watching. He's clearly never going to win Money in the Bank, but because he's just not that guy. He's not a world champion type guy, at least not in WWE. Maybe in TNA or something. I don't even see that happening in AEW. But honestly, I don't hate the idea for him to leave, because I think, like you said, he's betting on himself, and he's a guy that could probably make a lot of money and have a lot of fun matches outside of WWE. Now, could he end up on Rampage in 6 months from now, contending for the TNT Championship? Probably. But I can't say it's much worse than the spot he finds himself in currently, which is why I'm not really against the idea of him leaving.
No, yeah, I agree. I think if that, like I said, if he's not where he wants to be, I think leaving's probably the best option. But I just don't think he really has that big of a ceiling to like go any further than he currently is. Like, and is it maybe independently? But I mean, he's kind of like a mid card at this point.
At this point, he certainly is. I think there wasn't much more they could have done. Like, when he first came to the main roster 5 years ago, yes, they could have booked him better. He could have been more of an attraction for WWE. He just wasn't. They never really booked him at that seriously of a level, and that was a mistake. But I think it's unfair to say that they failed him. I mean, honestly, his mic skills have really held him back more than anything. And he was over at certain points, and he had momentum, and they did nothing with it. So that certainly is WWE's fault, Vince's fault, whatever. But honestly, during the Triple H era, what more could they really have done with them in the last 2 years that they haven't already done? Like I said, he's been, like you said too, he's been on the show a fair amount. He's won a decent amount of matches. But at the same time, it's like, oh, we never got like a significant title run. Yeah, I mean, I guess they could have done that, but at the same time, though, they have so many people on their roster right now that I would rather see showcased. At this point, Ricochet feels like they've kind of taken him for granted. So if he were to leave and come back, he might be in a better spot than he was in previously. So who knows, you know?
No, yeah, I agree.
I don't know if he's going to improve his stock that much, but, you know, I mean, I think he, at least for the initial year or so when he leaves WWE, unless he re-signs at the last minute, all of this could be for nothing. He could re-sign next week, and then we're just talking about this for nothing. I would be very surprised if that was the case. And I also don't think WWE should turn around and offer him, like, 5 years ago, like when the OC was rumored to leave. AJ wasn't going anywhere, but Gallows and Anderson were clearly on their way out, and they offered them like a lot of money, not $1 million, maybe collectively, but individually it was like a lot of money. And that was just a waste because they're not worth that amount of money. So like with Ricochet, they have to know where they're willing to spend with him and not just offer him $1 million just to stay there, because that would be stupid. To do what? To have him job out to the next Braun Breaker? I mean, that's silly. So I feel like his spot right where it is right now is probably his ceiling. But he can go, enjoy that ceiling in another company for a couple years and maybe come back down the road, because they usually do. And even if he doesn't, that's fine too. But we can maybe get that Will Ospreay match at some point. People have talked about that. That should be insane. Maybe at All In. We spoke last week what they're doing with Ospreay right now and challenging for the championship at Forbidden Door. I think he probably will run it back with Swerve at All In and win the championship there. So I don't think we get Ricochet and Ospreay at All In. But I guess it's possible. I guess they could do it there if they wanted to. But I do think Ricochet will be All Elite at some point and hopefully rip it up in the Indies in the meantime.